Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation podcast live, guys. Tonight is the Q&A, guys. It is your chance to ask your questions here on the channel. We obviously have some pre-sent in questions, which will be posted on the community tab on the channel, guys. They're already up, and we'll be going through those this evening. It is also your chance in the live chat to get your questions up and your questions answered. I've already got some people in the live chat already. Inconvenient Truth says, good evening, Owen, fellow Jers fans. Hope everyone is well. Oh, we're all good, buddy. Good. Now that Ridvan looks like he will be staying, do we still need a left back in this window? That's a good question. We'll get to that question. Not so sure if this is a football question or what it is. Taylor Swift or Miley Cyrus. What a question. What a question. Good evening. I hope you are good, Jake. A few comments that I was putting there myself. Just a few reminders for you all here in the live chat. So, Hoggy, good evening, buddy. How you doing? Absolute evening. Good evening to you. Okay, so before we get to the pre-prepped questions, let's get to this question, which is very topical at this moment in time. We dropped a video here on the channel not so long ago as regards that man, Mr. Ridvan Yilmaz. Now, obviously, all the talk was, as I said on the video, that this man here was departing the club, that he was heading off to pastures new, that he was going off to Verona, and then there was talk of Galatasaray. There's been talk of Besiktas. There's been talk of multiple Turkish clubs been interested in securing the services of the young Turkish left back. However, as we found out tonight, Rangers have rejected. That is right, have rejected a bid of 3.4 million. Well, it was a loan with an option to buy for 3.4 million for Ridvan Yilmaz. So looks like Ridvan is staying put for the meantime. This is a question, obviously, that Inconvenient Truth wants answered. He said that, so let's just repeat the question. Now that Ridvan looks like he could be staying, do we still need a left back in this window? That is a great question, a fantastic question. Do we still need a left back in this window? Good question. Yes, I think we do still need a left back in this window. Personally, I would love to see the club move Borna Barisic on. You guys know that I'm not a fan of Borna Barisic. You know that I don't like Borna Barisic. You know that I don't think Born is a good player. He's too negative. He's past his best. He's 32, I think it's going to be. He's too slow. He's defensively weak. He's let us down at Parkhead a number of times. You've got to question his attitude. Personally, I would like to see us get a left back still, someone to come in and obviously, play a part and I think share the duties with Ridvan. Ridvan's really impressed me in the last few games. He's really come onto his own. Now he's fit. Now he's firing. Now he's good to go. I honestly think that we still do need left back, though. I think it's time we move Borna on. If we can get Borna to Dynamo Zagreb or somewhere like that in Croatia for a little bit of cash now, that for me would represent a good piece of business for this board. So that's my thoughts on that one. Inconvenient Truth. Daniel McDonough says, hi, and how's you, bro? I'm good, Daniel. How you doing, buddy? Stuart in the live chat. Evening, Stuart. How you doing? My good buddy John, one of our top contributors on the channel, says, good evening, Owen, and all the teddy bears in the chat. Hope everyone is keeping well. We're good, John. How are you doing over there in Frankfurt? And Daniel says, BB is overrated by too many fans. Yeah, I did tweet that out the other day and got a shed load of abuse for it. Borna Barisic, there seems to be a real blind spot when it comes to Borna Barisic amongst our fan base. Look, I'm not saying Borna has not been a great player for Rangers. Borna has been a great servant for the club in the past. During the 55 season, he was fabulous. And I think at the end of 55, we probably could have sold him for a massive amount of money, a big profit. But we let his contract run down. Ross Wilson, I think, is primarily to blame for the fact his contract was run down. And yeah, 55, he was a great player. He was a top player. Borna Barisic. But look, 2 seasons on, is he the same player? No. Is he the same defender he was 2 seasons ago? No. Does he have the same defensive capabilities he had 2 seasons ago? No. Has he lost a step of pace? Yes. Is he a bit of a one-trick pony when it comes to crossing? Yes. Is he part of Rangers' problem when it comes to set-piece delivery? Yes. So for me, it's time Borna moved on. We thank him for his service. We thank him for what he's done. But I just think, look, guys, we need to move him on. We need to move Borna on. He's too old now. He's 31, 32 years old. He isn't going to get any quicker. He isn't going to get any better. So look, it's time to move on. I think, yes, that's why we do still need a left back in this window. Hello, Bears. Hello, Big Bad Barry. What a name. Love that name, guy. Love that name, Barry. Top name. And obviously, we were linked with that Czech international, David Jurasek, on loan till the end of the season. He is currently under contract at Benfica. There's not really a possibility of buying him. He started his career at Slavia Prague. Reason being, he would cost £8 million, and I cannot see Rangers splashing £8 million on a left back, and we can't afford a striker seemingly. We can't afford 3 to 4 million for Shankland, and I just can't see us doing it. I just don't think we've got the money to spend £8 million on a left back. So for me, that is a big no. It is a loan. If we can get a loan, then fair enough. But other than that, I just can't see that one happening, other than the 6-month loan, which has been discussed. Okay, so we've got 4 questions that were sent in by people that were on the community tab before the pod. When we do a Q&A podcast, guys, just a reminder, I always post on the community tab when the podcast is going to be a Q&A, when we're turning the show over to you. And obviously that's, that's when you need to write your questions down, get your questions down. I do obviously still welcome questions in the live chat. Also a reminder, we have a podcast live Thursday with these 2 people here, the phenomenal Laura Hatton and also Damien Hendry, the guy who is the singer behind Four Lads Had a Dream and Famous RFC, which is on the match day mix. That's Thursday at 8:35. So come and join us for that. What have we got? Blue Nose says, I feel that our managers have changed Borna's game due to his detriment. He used to be a marauding fullback. He turns around, he horseshoes too much. I think that's probably a Gio thing. Also, John, you've got to work on the basis the guy is getting older. And we all know, John, as I know, when you get older, things get taken away from you, don't they? Your speed, your responses, your quickness, your reactions. And I think it's just, look, I think, I know it's crazy, isn't it, to say that, 32 is old, especially when you're 45 like me. But look, it is what it is. Football is a young man's sport, isn't it? He is really a young man's sport. And look, I think it's time Borna moved on. I really do think it is time that we moved Borna on. Okay, guys, remember, if you can, please smash that like. And if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please sub to our channel. Okay, so let's get into the questions that were sent in by the viewers, by the people. I need to find one of the questions. One of the questions seems to have dropped off, which is not good at all. So I'm going to try and find that question that's dropped off, because there is a missing question. I can tell there is a missing question. I need to quickly identify where the missing question is and bring it back, because everybody who writes a question, everybody who puts a question across is entitled to have their question asked. If they write their question on the community tab on the channel before we start the podcast, then obviously I want their question on my channel. Like I've always said, the aim of what we do here on Glasgow Rangers Nation is to bring you into this, to make this a fan experience, to make this a fan family. That's why we bring it in. We've got a question. Archie said, if Borna accepts a much lower wage and be backup, I wouldn't mind keeping him. Not much second choice left backs better than him. A decent point, RFC 72. I can't see him doing that. I can't see him wanting to be a backup. I still think he wants to play for Croatia. If he's a backup, if he's not playing full time for Rangers, he isn't going to get picked for Croatia. So I can't see that happening, to be honest with you. Okay, here's the first question that was sent in. RFC 5649, one of our channel members, says, a lot of money getting wasted on players that aren't good enough or always injured. Are we even trying to move them on? What a good question. A good question. Are we even trying to move them on? Now, I think the issue obviously here is that you can't always, it's hard to find buyers for some of these players. Now, if we go through some of those players that you're probably thinking about there, I mean, let's begin with the most obvious one, I think, from that list, Kemar Roof. Look, the problem is, what team is going to take a risk on Kemar Roof? Now, the guy's out of contract in the summer, so he's going to cost you nothing. Why would you spend money on him in January when you are going to get a player that probably isn't fit, that probably isn't going to be fit till the end of January, start of February time? And then even if you get him fit, there's no guarantee of keeping him fit. I think one of the issues with moving some of these players on is the ones that are constantly injured. Why would you take a risk on them? Why would you want to buy players who are constantly injured? You could even put Tom Lawrence into that bracket as well. Another player who's out an awful lot. He seems to come back from an injury 3 to 4 weeks later. He seems to be injured again. So I think that's the first hurdle we come to when it comes to moving players on. Second hurdle is, I think there's a lot of those players as well who are on big wages and big contracts. You've got, say, Sam Lammers, who's on over 20 grand a week and he's, a 3-year, 4-year contract. The issue you've got there is, do these players want to move on to clubs where they're probably going to get less money? Ben Davies is another one, so he obviously, I think he's on over 20 grand a week at the club. I don't think if he goes to the English Championship, he's going to get a team that's going to be willing to pay him over £20,000 a week. So that's the second issue. I think trying to move them on, I 100% agree that these players need to be moved on. Kemar Roof needs to be gone. Borna Barisic needs to be gone. To some extent, Tom Lawrence is a brilliant player, but he's constantly injured. There's a lot of these players that need to be moved on, but I think finding a buyer for them is not easy. You've also got Ryan Jack, Leon Balogun, John McLaughlin, John Lundstrom, all into the last years of their contracts. There's a lot of clubs out there that will be sitting here thinking, well, do you know what? Why would I want to pay? Why would I want to pay £1 million, £2 million for these players? When at the end of the day they're going to be free in the summer. Well, they're not free, are they? I suppose all the transfer fee goes to the player rather than the club. So the player doesn't want to move because he's sitting there thinking, well, I can move for £1 million now, or £500,000 now, or £2 million now, and Rangers will get 1 million, 2 million, whatever, or I can wait till the summer and I'm going to get the vast majority of that. So I think the problem we're really facing when it comes to moving players on is that the players that we can't move on, the ones that we want to move on. Now, I think you probably could find a market and sell the likes of Rid van Yilmaz. To some extent, you could probably sell Todd Cantwell. To some extent, you could probably sell Nicholas Raskin. But the problem you've got there is they're not players you want to move on at this stage. The players we do want to move on, like I said, you can't move them on because they're injury prone. They're always out injured. And which club wants to take on a sick note? The players that some players that you want to move on that are under contract are on big contract, are not going to get the same money elsewhere. And that's an issue. And the third reason is that you've got players who've run their contracts down right to the last 6 months now, and clubs aren't going to come in and pay money for them because, number one, the player doesn't want to move because he wants to get the signing on fee, the extra signing on fee when he moves in the summer. And second and third of all, the club doesn't want to pay the premium price they're going to have to pay to not only pay a signing on fee for the player, but also to get the player out of what is left of his contract. It's a difficult one. And I think a lot of it comes down, going back to the question now, RFC 56, a lot of it goes down to the fact that we are a club that has done some really bad business over the course of a number of windows. We have brought in a lot of players who are sick notes. We've let contracts run down. We've let players, we've let contracts just dwindle to nothing, as we did with Alfie and Ryan Kent and Philip Helander and Scotty Arfield. And we've not been able to get money for these players. I think it's a lot around the players not wanting to go because they want the money themselves, players being constantly injured, and also the fact that we've done really bad business in the past and we haven't renewed contracts and we haven't done anything about it. The way it works, I think, or it needs to work, is when a player moves into the last 2 years of his contract, you go to that player and say, right, here's a new contract for 3 years or 4 years or 1 year or whatever you're offering him. Sign it. And if he doesn't want to sign it, you sell him then. You sell him when he's got 2 years left on his deal, because that's when you're going to get some money for him. If you let him run his contract down to a year to 6 months, you're not going to get the money you're not going to get the value for the player. Clubs aren't going to want to pay when there's 6 months left, like I said. So I think you've got to operate a policy, which a number of the EPL clubs do. When it gets to that last 2 years, you go to that player and say, here's your contract, sign it. And if they say no, you will say, well, okay, you're on the transfer list, we're going to sell you. That's how it's got to work. That is how it's got to work for me. Blue Nose John asks a question in the live chat. He says, what do we do with Tom Lawrence? Is it stick or twist time for him? John, that is a fantastic question. And it is a question that I am struggling with. Look, I like Tom Lawrence. I think Tom Lawrence is a very talented player. I think he's a very good player. I think his range of passing is excellent. He's a player who takes a shot. He's a player who takes a risk. He's a player who is good going forward. He's a player who can play in a number of positions. He can play out wide. He can play in a 10. He can play as part of that 2 in front of the back 4 at home. So he is a very talented player. And I've got no doubts that he is an asset. However, I can see, though, that the one concern is that since we've signed him, how many games has Tom Lawrence missed? How many games has he been out for? He came in at the start of last season, looked really good, got injured, was out for pretty much the whole season. Then this season, he comes back in pre-season, plays a bit, gets injured against Betis, goes off, comes back, plays a bit more, gets injured again, goes off again. He's just out an awful lot for me. Now, look, I'm not slagging the lad off because I think he's a great player. I love Tom Lawrence. I think he's a brilliant player. I think he's really talented. I think he's got a lot of talent. My worry, John, is the fact that he's constantly injured, that he's constantly out. And I think as a club, we've got to now sit down and look at this and think, look, we can't afford to be in a situation like we've been up to this winter break where we are constantly on, paying players to sit in the stands, constantly paying a squad that is thin because of the fact that too many guys are constantly getting injured. I think Lawrence, is the least of our worries at this moment in time. I think there's bigger worries over the defensive players. I think, Balogun's getting older, Goldson's getting older, Borner's getting older. You've got Kemar Roof's always injured, Ryan Jackson to the last year of his contract. There's a lot of issues there. And to how many players can you get rid of in the summer that then you can replace? It's a very difficult one. So, look, Tom Lawrence, I think, is the least of our problems at the moment. I'm not sure how long the laddie's contract is, but I think he is one we're going to have to flip eventually. We are going to have to sell. And hopefully, he can get a situation where he's had a little bit of a run in the team and then we can flip him on, because I just think he's out too much. He misses too many games, and we've got to have good high availability with these players. Philippe Clement said, didn't he, at the start, near the start of his reign, that he's used to having 95% availability with his players. I'd love to know what the availability is in our squad. I bet it's around about 60-70% at the moment. And Tom Lawrence, like I said, I'm not criticizing him. I'm not berating him. I'm not slagging him off, because I think Tom Lawrence is a quality player. I don't think he's, like I said, our major issue. I do think it might be time that we twist with him and we sell him on if we can, John. Sorry, that's quite a long answer to that question, but it's a difficult one. And like I said, Tom is a good player. I like Tom. I've got nothing against Tom. I think he's a quality player. Kyle, we've got your question coming up as well that you posted yesterday during the live stream. We will answer that shortly. Kyle says, Owen, thoughts on our club being a total shambles? 30k profit on Edmiston House, marketing manager as a CEO, losing employment tribunals to loyal staff, and clearly a board out of touch. Oh my God, that's Kyle. It's a mess. It's a mess. Look, as I said yesterday on the video that I did yesterday, or maybe it was on Friday, I can't remember when I did the video. Hardboard our Salrix 90s biscuit tint here. I'm a bit fed up of us going about this a little bit the wrong way in terms of infrastructure over quality of product on the field. Now, if you look at most clubs that look to improve overall, now I don't buy into this comment that I was criticized either on here or on X the other day by somebody who said the board has been massively changed. Well, the board hasn't been massively changed. John Bennett was vice chairman to Douglas Park. James Bisgrove was marketing manager during Douglas Park's reign. So these guys were working under Douglas Park and under the absolutely bloody awful Stuart Robertson, someone who I was never allowed to criticise when Victoria was on the channel, because Stuart Robertson is a family friend of hers. So I was never allowed to criticise him. So Stuart Robertson was bloody awful at his job. Now, look, the problem we've got is the board are fanning around too much, spending money on things that are not important and not dealing with things in the right way. For me, it's about, Kyle, getting the product on the field right first and then getting the infrastructure right. I'm not talking about ticketing. I'm not talking about that, because that's important. The fan experience is important, don't get me wrong. But what is more important is getting a winning team on the field first, then going after things like sports bars and carveries and blue sky lounges and et cetera, et cetera. So for me, Kyle, James Bisgrove, look, I'll repeat what I said on the video the other day. I need to reserve judgment on the board until this transfer window is over. At the moment, I don't think they're doing a good job. I think there's too much faffing around the edges. I think there's too much flapping around the edges. I do think that there's not enough substance behind improving what's on the field. Now, I do know a lot of that is down to the fact Michael Beale wasted a lot of money, but we also brought in a substantial amount of money as well in the summer with the sales of Sakala, of Kamara, of Cholak, for example, cleared Hadji's wages off the books, etc., etc. The tribunal for the kit man, someone who did a great job, a great job for us. Him, that was a Beale disaster that we're now paying for, because Michael Beale is an absolute fraud and charlatan. So it is a mess. It is an absolute mess. And James Bisgrove has got this in his locker, hasn't he? The Australia debacle, for example. So for me, it's not looking great, Kyle, at the moment. Like I said, I'm going to draw judgment on the board at the end of the window. Owen, as well as Rangers chance scouts, do you know? I think it's time they moved some of the medical staff next. We are one of the worst teams in Europe with injury. Absolutely. That is something that needs a huge overhaul. I'm sure that is something on Philippe Clement's list of to do, to be honest with you, Stuart, because I think if you look at it, the medical, whatever is going on with the medical staff is awful. Absolutely awful. I don't get how a player can be out injured, go off injured, and it's saying, oh, it's a short-term injury. And then a month, 2 months, 3 months later, he's still injured. What's going on with the medical staff? What's going on with the strength and conditioning work? That is something I think Philippe Clement does need to look at. And I think this summer is something he does need to massively overhaul, Stuart. Hugely agree. Prior Loyalist, one of our top supporters on the channel, says, how can a club like ours be in such a mess regarding money? Bad mismanagement in the board levels, Loyalist. That's what it's down to. Edmiston House return isn't that bad. It's only for a few months and doesn't include the museum and stuff yet. True. But I do think, like I said, RFC 72, there's a bit too much not looking after the product on the field first before you put into place everything else. Where's it all gone? Good point. They sold us a dummy last year. We will invest more into the first team than any other manager has in years, and then only spend what we sold. It was a lie. The net spend, I think, was 2.85 million. That's what we spent in the end with the players incoming. Absolutely. Agreed on. We essentially spent 10 million on building Castoria, a new shop and cafe. Viewpart Loyal says the money has been spent on all the wrong places. Getting sick of this board. This is what I'm saying. I think it is too much of fannying around the edges. RFC 72 says Bisgrove has done a great job, done well over expectations each year, had a few mishaps, but as expected, Bennett is his issue. Yeah, I think, like I said, RFC 72, look, I'm not a huge fan of James Bisgrove. I think with James Bisgrove, he's a little bit show and no substance at times, and he doesn't seem to realise I think his heart's in the right place. I think he's working hard. I just think he needs to be better at prioritizing, if I'm being honest with you, RFC 72. I think, and yes, I know he's not spending the money. Good point. I think it's about him getting his priorities right. I think he does need to work on prioritizing correctly. That's the point I was making there. Well, where's the point here? We've got, does anyone know the story about Jim McAllister? I know Jim's dad personally, but I haven't spoken to him in many years. I don't know the full story. I just know he was sacked because of something Michael Beale took against him, apparently. I get what you're saying, but you or me could a good marketing manager increase salary sales by 200% by selling 4 strips to fans instead of 2 a season. The board is all talk, no action, to be honest, Stuart. Look, I buy into the John Bennett thing. Look, the John Bennett is a Rangers man. Look, I get that. He's a Rangers fan, and I'm not disputing the fact that he's a Rangers fan. My concern, and I'm not saying he's the devil incarnate here, or that he needs to be sacked. But what I am saying about him is he was Douglas Park's vice chair, so he was part of the debacle after 55. He's been part of selecting all the managers we've had since Steven Gerrard. He was on the board when Gio was hired. He was on the board when Beale was hired. He was part of the Beale hiring process. He is culpable for some of that. He was part of the board that allowed Michael Beale to waste the money that he did. So for me, Bennett is not totally innocent in this at all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mistopheles. That's fantastic. Douglas Park was a shambles as well. We were never off the front page. Agree, Viewpart Loyal. John Bennett is a good old-fashioned asset stripper. That's all. That was his job. That's how he made his money. Sounds good, but little to no substance, says Kyle. I think that's the issue. Like I said, my worry is there's a lot of fans who've had their wool pulled over their eyes with John Bennett, that John Bennett is very much Douglas Park's man. He was Douglas Park's vice chair. He was part of the 55 after post 55 debacle. He was part of the people that selected Gio. He was part of the people that sacked Gio. He was part of the people that hired Beale. He's part of the people that sacked Beale. So he's got it wrong a lot of turns. And I think that's something they needed to look at. If they plan right, a new striker will be top priority. We need goals. Stuart, an amazing point. Spot on. And that's what's frustrating. I think we've got to hope that what Philippe Clement says is accurate. Philippe Clement talked very much about the fact that they're working hard to bring in players. I just hope that he is bringing in players, and that he is, there are going to be some strikers on the way, because we do need strikers. We badly need strikers. You've only got to watch yesterday's games to see that, but it's not just yesterday's game. You can see that in a number of games that we don't take our chances, that we don't score our goals, and the reason we don't do that is because of the fact we don't have someone to finish. Cyril Dessers had one chance yesterday, too many touches again, loses the ball, and again we don't score. Dessers is not the answer. Silva's not a striker. He's not an out-and-out striker. He is not an out-and-out striker. He is very much a 10 or a wing forward. What else have we got here? Artcast, the problem is there's a lot of fed up fans being fed up. Second half capitulations incoming with the Tav Goldson love in. Thank God for Philippe Clement. We have a bit of hope. We do with Philippe Clement. Spot on, Kyle. Okay, let's get to a few more questions that were sent in by you guys into the community tab. This is a long question. This was by Davy Johnston. He said, should we be more focused on our youth or transfer market in the coming 3 to 4 windows? I think we should be giving some of our younger players a chance to break in rather than stay in, rather than forking out millions for injury-prone, underachieving players, most of which have no form in the teams we get them from. Now, I think this question has a number of different levels to it. This question has a number of levels to it. I really do think that. I think, you look at that question there and you think, well, okay, first level is part of the issue, in terms of bringing, as he says, injury-prone or underachieving players, is down to a failure in the scouting. That's what that's down to. It's not down to us deliberately buying players who are constantly injured or deliberately buying players who are not good enough. It's down to the fact that our scouting is clearly not working. I'd love to know who scouted Sam Lammers, who scouted Cyril Dessers, who scouted, some of these players that are failing abysmally at this moment in time. Who actually went out and watched these guys and said, you know what, they're good players. I'd love to know that. Love to know that. I think the right answer here, Davey, is we need a mix. I think we need a mixture of spending some money on good players we can get into the trading model and we can flip for money, as well as some experienced players who are going to carry this team forward. But at the same point, I do think we do need to be giving some of our younger players more of an opportunity. So for me, one of the players, like I said, Zach Lovelace, when he's fit again and back in January, I want to see Zach playing. Who else? Bailey Rice. I want to see Bailey Rice get a go. Cole McKinnon. I want to see Cole McKinnon get a go. I thought Robbie Fraser did well yesterday when he came on in the second half. So give Robbie a go. Look, John Lee Yefeko, another one who's done well. He's had a couple of games for the first team. He's done all right for the first team. Give him a go. I think they can only learn from playing first team football. And look, what damage are we really going to do to the team putting the likes of Bailey and Cole, John Lee Yefeko, Zach Lovelace in, and Robbie Fraser in against the likes of Livy, St Johnstone, Ross County? What damage are we going to do realistically? If Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, Zach Lovelace, Robbie Fraser are not good enough to outplay the likes of Livy, St Johnstone, Ross County, even now, they're probably never going to be Rangers players. They're probably never going to be good enough to play for us. So this is something we need to see for me. And I think, David, to answer your question, we need to get the scouting right, bring in some players, but we also need to supplement that with bringing young players through and using them correctly at the right times, the way we've done with Ross McCausland. That's my answer to your question anyway. Problem is that we've got that one. Sorry, I've done that one. Stuart says, hey, Stuart, how you doing, buddy? Someone needs to be held account for the youth system. We obviously haven't got right. What is the point of the B team when you're not bringing through homegrown talent? Stuart, good question. I think the problem we've got here is, Stuart, the B team haven't really got a level to play at. The majority of games the B team have played this year have been friendlies against English teams. They haven't played a lot of competitive games this season due to dropping out of the Lowland League. I think there is a problem with the youth team in terms of getting players to come through. How much of that is players not being given the chance to come through? How much of that is the players not being good enough? You can look at the likes of Nathan Patterson, Billy Gilmore, for example, Adam Devine, Lewis Mayo, guys who've obviously not had the chance to play yet or a chance to play at all. So I think part of it is players not getting a chance as well, Stuart. I think there is an issue in the youth system, but I do think something needs to be done about the B teams. As Philippe Clement says, in a lot of European leagues, the B teams play up to the second tier. I think that's something we need to look at. I think us, Celtic, Hearts, even to some degree Aberdeen, might be interested in fielding B teams up to that level. I think the problem is when you have a B team that can't get promoted out of the Lowland League, to what point is the point of playing in that league then, because what level of competition are they getting? I think there is a wider issue in Scottish football with bringing through players in terms of the B team, or whether you bring back the reserve league. I don't know. There's got to be something done, though, to help these young players have a pathway and there be a stepping stone from that youth team setup into that first team setup. RFC, the reason we're doing Edmiston House and sports bars is because the board aren't made of money. They need to generate income to spend. Good point, RFC 72. I'm not saying you're wrong, RFC 72. I'm just giving my opinions. Carl 870, Bisgrove has got us from earning 5 million a year in sponsorship to nearly 40 million, mate. It's not because of the strips. I get what you're saying, but it's only generating 30k profit. So what's the point? Drop in the ocean. RFS1 1PT 1SG says Lammers looked amazing in his first game. Why can't the manager get the players playing for them? What about the manager being sent off in friendly? Shocking. Warning signs already. I think that was a joke, him being sent off, to be perfectly honest with you, for asking a question. I think it was an utter joke, and it was a training match. Why is he sending managers off? I don't get that. Pure Loyalist says, Phil is getting the full support from the board. There's a holdback for some unknown reasons. The board need to open up, help the club instead of putting us in on freeze. Evening, Suffolk Loyal. How you doing, buddy? Walter Smith was prone to flinging youth players into massive games. He was. And like I said, I want to see some more young players coming in. I really do. Biscoes came in at a time when we came out of draconian contracts with Sports Direct. Selling Rangers strips to fans every 2 minutes isn't revolutionary. Got to give young lads a chance, or why have them? Good point, Robert. Excellent point. Like I said, I think we need to mix them. And I think, why not give Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, Zach Lovelace, Robbie Fraser a chance to play against St Johnstone, Livy? I hope they get to play against Dumbarton on Saturday, because look, if they can't be good enough to beat those teams, then they're not good enough to play for Rangers. That's what we've got to look at it as. The board room are businessmen making money for themselves and the club. A bunch of John Greggs might get us a fan favour, but will never make money, says the Trying Scotsman. Pure Loyalist says the board just doesn't want to release the money. It's not that there isn't money. I think that's a debate. I think we've got a debate. I don't know. Without looking at the accounts, I don't know the answer to that one. We've got to bring in a striker, Stuart. Absolutely. Generate 1 million a year. What's that going to buy? There isn't anything big enough to hold our own age yet. It's a good point. Why is our manager starting to worry me about coming from the same, blaming everything else when it's tactics that lost the old firm and got sent off? Mickey Beale again. I disagree on that one, RF. I really do. I disagree on that one. Need to be honest, tinned glasses won't win the league. We only give young lads a chance when there's no other option. Remember, Bassey, Patterson, McGregor only happen when injuries happen. There isn't a pathway. It's a shambles. And that's what I'm saying, Carl. There needs to be a pathway developed. There needs to be more Ross McCauslands coming through and being given a chance to actually play in the first team. Young Ross has been absolutely fabulous. He really has. That he has played very, very well. He has been a breath of fresh air, and I do think we do need to give them more of an opportunity, other than when they're injured, when they're not when players are out. And like I said, games against Livy, St Johnstone, Ross County. No disrespect to those teams, but we should be beating those teams. And if these players can't come in and do a job against those teams, then they're not good enough to play for Rangers. Simple as. Okay, next question that came in. This was a question from Gary. It says, if Rangers could sign only one player, if money was no issue, what one player would you want and what made you pick him? So, guys, live chat, get your comments on this one. Getting back to the good old days of Brian Laudrup, Paul Gascoigne, Lorenzo Amoruso, et al. If you could buy one player and money was no object, who would you buy? So my answer to this question, I think some of you might have seen this, was Kylian Mbappe. Why would I sign Kylian Mbappe? Well, he's one of the best strikers in the world at this moment in time. He is fast, he's quick, he's good in the air, he's a leader, he's a quality player. If money was no object, I would sign Kylian Mbappe. That's who I would sign. He's just a quality player. He would score 50, 60 goals a season in the SPL. He'd probably win us a European trophy. So there we go. That's for me. is who I would sign, Kylian Mbappe. Realistically, if with the money we do have, who would I buy? Lawrence Shankland. It's got to be Lawrence Shankland. The guy will score us 20 goals in the second half of the season. The guy will win us the league. He'll get us to at least another round or two in Europa. He'll get us into the Champions League and pay for himself. So that's my comment on that one. With the money we've got, Lawrence Shankland. That's what we'd go for. Every time we bring a youngster in, we end up selling them. True. I think there's got to be a change in that. Tav has shown there is no pathway. He stopped Patterson getting that position. Now he's doing the same with Sterling. Yeah, and I think what we've got to do, Stuart, it's a big one for me. We need to see an overhaul in this defence. We really do need to see an overhaul in this defence come the summer. We do need to see. And look, I know this is going to make me galactically unpopular. I'm going to get massively slaughtered for this. I know I'm going to get slaughtered for saying this, but it's time Tav went. It's time Goldson went. It's time Barisic went. And we bring in and we overhaul that defence. The defence is too old. It's too old. If you start Tav, Goldson, Balogun and Barisic, you're starting a 32-year-old at right back, a 32-year-old at right side centre-half, a 36-year-old at left side centre-back, and a 31-year-old at left back. Too old. Too old. In modern football, it's too old. Whilst that may be good enough to beat Ross County, Livy, St Johnstone, Hibs, it isn't good enough to compete against that lot, and it's not good enough to compete in Europe. So for me, there does need to be an overhaul, and I agree, Stuart, we do need to get players out of the way who are putting in others' way. Sunclair Berman R says McGinn. I suppose he means John McGinn of Villa. That's who he would bring in. Good shout. Carl says McLaughlin, Tav, Goldson, Davis, Barisic, Jack, Lundstrom, Matondo, Roof, Dessers, and Wright. A full team that I'd get rid of. That's a hell of a list, mate. That is a whole team, actually, isn't it? Yeah, that is a whole team you'd get rid of. Yeah. I agree. There's no one on that list I wouldn't sell on. If someone comes in and said, obviously I know McLaughlin's out of contract, Barisic's out of contract, Lundstrom's out of contract, and Roof's out of contract, but the rest of them are all under contract. I agree. If someone comes in and puts in a bid, sell them. Agreed, Kyle. Agreed. I trust Clement, but the board is a different matter. My worry is they're just going to keep scraping the barrel for free agents and cheap options. To some degree, I do agree. Well said, Owen. I'm not quite sure what I'm selling on, but there we go. Owen, there couldn't agree more. I don't know where the sentimentality for failed players has come from. Aldo says, hello, Bears. This window looks bleak. Crap defence, midfield, forwards, no striker, no 56. Agreed, Aldo. RFC 72, great point. We need to get younger, more athletic. Our average age of the squad is 28, 29, which is horrendous. Agree. Bring them down 100%. I take it you mean Job and not Jude. Joe Bellingham from Sunderland, not Jude Bellingham from Real Madrid, because I don't think we can afford 150 million. He is a good player, Joe Bellingham, though. Can we get the Rangers women? They scored 10 today. Yeah, well done, Rangers women. Fantastic. Absolutely fabulous, Rangers women. Well done. Not get any for anyone on that list. Okay. Celtic buy Gucci while we buy Pick and Mix. Lol. Some decent comments there. Thank you very much. Right. Okay, let's get to the final question that's been sent in. Well, it was actually, I photographed it off the live stream yesterday. Q&A. If Tav and Goldson are so good, why has no one ever put a bid in for one, even when you could have got Goldson for no fee? That's Kyle, 1872, who's in the live chat tonight. Good question, Kyle. And this is part of the argument I've had with a number of fans over the last few weeks. Tav's numbers going forward are phenomenal. They're great. Look, he scored 116 goals, I think it is, 112 assists. That's 228 goal involvements, which is brilliant for a fullback. And, Connor Goldson at one point probably was a very good defender. But you're right. If they're such top quality defenders, why has no one bid for them? Why has no top EPL club come in for them? If Tav is so amazing with these numbers, which he is going forward, don't get me wrong, he's very good at assists. He's very good at scoring goals. Why has no one come in for him? And I'm not even talking about the likes of Manchester City or Liverpool here, because that's just unrealistic. But the Newcastles, I know you wasn't Newcastle's formerly, the Chelseas, the Aston Villas, these teams that are Tottenham's, that are in that perhaps that level bracket below the real elite clubs like Arsenal, like Manchester City, like Liverpool, that bracket just below there. Why have none of them come in for him? Look, seriously, if you love Tav and you think Tav is amazing, tell me why no top English club has come in for him ever. It's a valid question. Why has no top English club ever put in a bid for him? There we go. Golson's attitude after Hibs defeat, he should have left. Agreed. Golson only stayed because he had nothing better. Yep. There we go. Goldson and Tav both thought Gerrard would take him with them. Interesting. Tavis Pish won 3 trophies since 2017. Let's be honest. Ralletson has more, for God's sake. Need to get real here. True. Geordie, Lingard is a free agent. Apparently, Owen isn't happy with. Owen Beck isn't happy at being recalled to Liverpool and not getting game time, so could possibly come in. Geordie, good point. Lingard, no, thank you. The guy, if you're pissed off with what Todd Cantwell does on social media, wait till you see what Jesse Lingard does. That guy is so distracted by social media. So Jesse Lingard, no, thank you. Owen Beck, look, yes, I get that, but Jurgen Klopp has made it clear he isn't going to let him go. So I think that's a dead one there. Tav has had interest and Goldson as well. Defoe even said it. Why would they leave Rangers to join the bottom of the Premiership teams? He used Aribo as an example. Yeah, but RC72, I'm not talking about bottom level Premiership teams. I'm talking about Leeds were in for Tav. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the next level below that top level. I get that 100%. You know, why would he leave Rangers to join Brentford or Southampton or Leeds? What I'm saying is, if he's so fantastic and so amazing, like a lot of people paint him to be, why have the likes of Chelsea, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Newcastle never come in for him? Those clubs at the level below your Man City's, your Liverpools, and your Arsenals. That's the point I'm making. Tavi's overweight, slow, a player on the decline. He stifles our forward players, and players need to cover his runs rate going forward. Like a junkie on methadone, it's not helping, it's killing him. Defense has been together for too long. Yeah, absolutely. The best point of the pod is we need to refresh the defense. Absolutely, 100%, John. We do need to refresh the defense. It does need a huge rebuild. I think the point we made the other day was you take Tav, Goldson, and Barisic. That defense played against Celtic 5.5 years ago. How many other top teams around Europe have the exact same defense or 3/4 of the exact same defense they had 5.5 years ago? Answer me that. Because Tav scores goals in the Scottish League, you think he would have had the numbers playing in the Premier League? No, he wouldn't. Good point. He wouldn't. That's why. Because he scores goals in Scotland. Good point, Stuart. Excellent point. Goldson cost us the European final, sleeping in defence, then tried to blame Bassi. Best defender we've had this year is Dujon, and he's played there twice, says Geordie. But I suppose the problem with Dujon is he's not very good in that defensive midfield role. I did think that Dujon didn't look great in playing as a right winger, but that's because he's not a right winger. To be fair, no big offers have come in for Kent, Alfredo, Tav, Borna, etc. Transfer policy has failed. Only players over 10 million for a club our size. But I think when it comes to Kent and Alfredo, RFS1, I think the issue there is that there was an opportunity to sell them, but we didn't take it. You know, I think I can't remember who came in for Alfredo, but some French team came in for him. We turned the bid down. Same as we turned down a £10 million bid from Nice for Kamara. The same way I think we did turn down a bid for Kent as well. We did hang on to them for too long. RFC72 says, because there's better right backs out there with the money they can spend. That's why. True. Goldson always blames everyone else when it's his fault. Tav's not a big name anywhere else, but he's a goal scorer. That's why we won't get a shot of him. I think, like I said, the defense needs an overhaul. It just so badly does need an overhaul. It really, really does. I knew someone had come in for Alfredo and we just didn't sell him. He was valued at about 16, 17 million at one point, but we just didn't sell him and we let him go for nothing. That was the issue. Madrid 4, Barcelona 1. Is that the score at the moment, buddy? Lille offered 18 million for Morelos. Leeds offered 16 million for Kent. Gerrard refused to sell them. And the board listened. Yeah, that's the point. You know, we could have had £34 million for those two players when we could have moved them on and got a lot of money for them. And then look how it all finished. Let's not get into blame over the Seville. Please let's not talk about the Europa League final in Seville. We don't want to all have PTSD from tonight, do we? Party Bear says, "What's Curry Munch? Stands of Ibrox. If you want to watch that, Stands of Ibrox." And you're better than Vera. Thanks, buddy. Thanks. That really makes me feel good tonight. Thanks. Funny. Yeah, if you want to check out Curry's podcast, that's Curry's podcast, buddy. Tav scores penalties and the occasional free kick. So what the biggest stat for Tav is 3 trophies, not good enough. Wait and see. Tav will sit for the next 2 years and we'll get nothing for him. Like I said, I think one of the things we do need to overhaul the defence, but that for me is a summer problem. That is not a now problem. That is a summer problem for me. We do need to overhaul the defence, but that needs to wait till the summer. Guys, 60 people watching, please smash that like if you can. Help support the podcast. So we've answered the 4 questions, guys. What does John say? We will always get our pants pulled down in the big games of this defence. That's right, we do. We do 100%, buddy. You look at the Betis game. They got in behind us so easily on 2 occasions. Yes, part of that was McCausland not tracking back, but the defence does cost us. Agreed, John. Kyle, well said. Look, at the end of the day, the defence needs an overhaul. But I think for this window, we need to focus on what we need in this window. And for me, the priority has to be a striker. We've got to sign a striker. If we don't sign a striker, I honestly believe we are lost. Big time. And there's no way we can get 56 without a striker. 100%. Okay, guys, thank you for watching the Q&A tonight, guys. Absolutely fantastic. How many goals did we let go in the summer? I said it would bite the club in the ass, and it did. I agree. Tony Cholak, Antonio Cholak should never have been allowed to leave. 100% agree on that one. Should never have been allowed to leave. Cholak is a better player than Dessers. Dessers cost 4.5 million. Cholak cost 1.5 million. How is Dessers £3 million better than Tony Cholak? Answer me that. Would love to know. We need to be ruthless and sell. John, you couldn't have said it better. Better. Could you Fecco become the next Bassi? I'd be happy. Geordie, that's certainly one that I think is a possibility. Okay, guys, let's call it a night. Thank you to Stuart. Thank you, your loyalist. On the way out, guys, if you can smash the like for me, that would be phenomenal. And always remember, never forget, we are the people.